Taliesin Jaffe, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with Tech Raptor. We're going to talk about Downfall. To start it all off, knowing the reputations of the bloody events of Calamity with Brennan as the DM, how did you feel going into Downfall?
Boy, I was really excited. I Brennan and I have only played I think one or two games over the, our international gas leak year. Uh, uh, that was 2020. But we've known each other for a very long time, and I am full enough of myself that I'm very rarely intimidated by other human beings' intelligence, wit, and intensity. So I knew he was going to bring something very challenging, and I was really glad that I was picked for this very specifically. It was like, this is my jam. Like, oh, we know.
um,
Yeah, I had high expectations, and boy, were they met.
in Downfall, you play Asha, a monk who is the mortal aspect of the Wild Mother. What made you decide to pick the Wild Mother as your character's true form? Like,
I went in with a lot of thought. We all went in with a lot of thoughts, and at one point I was like, can I do a betrayer guy? Because I got a great idea. I pitched a couple ideas, and Matt was basically like, no, like not that one. No, it's like you are not up enough on the lore to like really have like there were things where like, gotta do this, and he was like, well, there's these were lore things you don't know. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. um, And then, God, how did it become the Wild Mother? I'm trying to remember where, like, because that wasn't going to be. I had like a Moonweaver idea. I had a great Moonweaver idea. I'm saving that for later. And then, just seeing how the rest of the cast was coming together, and Brendan was very much like, can you find a different opinion uh, going into this? And that was and especially with Bashir coming in with their character, it was like, this is great because it is on a certain level the same opinion from two very different vantage points, uh, which I mean, Brendan loved and I loved, and my take on the Wild Mother, my take on the Wild Mother has always been a little weird, and I was glad to kind of come in and take the essential philosophy I'd kind of been putting forward with Caduceus, and kind of make a version of what I call the perhaps I didn't make myself clear. So yeah, it was nice to I love finding the point in a party of like, this really hasn't been done in the group, and level 20 monk is so weird.
yeah.
But it's a weird way to come
A lot of the time, especially in episode one, we see Asha
in.
wild shape into her elf form.
Mm.
Is this just an aspect of her being the Wild Mother or something else mechanically? I know some people are online have been theorizing that Asha is a Lithari elf.
No, just I she the well, she's actually her actual incarnated form is a basically a wolf or dire wolf. She came in, she is not human at all. And she came in just with enough. And I talked to, and this was a conversation with Brendan. I actually like took a unique, I basically dropped one of like the feet options in that level 20 build, and just took basically what was a wild shape that only could do one thing,
Okay.
more or less, which was could wild shape into a human or into an elfin form as a matter of convenience, more or less. It was so that we didn't have to constantly deal with I mean, from a story aspect, you didn't constantly have to deal with a wolf, which is complicated. And as a way of moving, I think she would have known she needs to move around, and very from a very practical standpoint. She doesn't talk often. It's almost all telepathy. Like, even when in human form, when she does talk, it is slow and broken. It's not a muscle that works very well.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that reads as often as I'd like, but it is almost entirely telepathic conversation.
Yeah, I mean, in what you're talking about with like a different take on the Wild Mother, definitely the vibe that I get, especially in the later conversations with, when the family gets together. It seems like you've enhanced the wild aspect of the Wild Mother when really we've traditionally seen the mothering aspect.
When things are better. uh, things are not great. She doesn't have a lot of followers right now, and even the place like the natural world, which is by its very nature, um, and we see a little bit at the beginning of like animals and plant everything in its own unique way. Every living thing is kind of is part of her domain, and especially living things in general, animals and birds and plants kind of have their reverence to her, and it's a safe source of power. They're kind of gone, uh, dead, and backstory that doesn't really get hit up as much. Again, 3 episodes is she found herself a little patch of forest hidden away, like it is the 100-acre wood in the middle, or the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It's that little chunk of
Oasis Green
of forest, and that's where the food that they're bringing in comes from. And she's basically started up a cult, and that's where those people are, which is like people who wander in who are like, "This is what I want." And she's like, "Great, you live by my rules, and if you fuck up, I kill you." Because fucking bull. So yeah, she kind of broken the rules there and kind of has a cult, but is very much setting up and comes in also as a wolf to remove the compassionate part of that goddess. It's a very intentional choice to not have the empathy for the human world, because she knew everyone else was going to have that, and to come in with that utilitarian, or I mean, honestly, natural law, predator prey focus that was just not necessarily going to be there. Other than her and her wife were going to be the only two people with a real ability to have that detachment. Oh, I'll talk forever about this game.
Moving a bit further away from
Yeah.
story and onto the mechanics, early on in the Bell's Hells campaign, you did state that you had a monk cooked up for the next EXU. Assuming that is what Asha has become, what about it?
No,
not at all.
No, that monk, I have that monk still set. I was going to do it. That was one of my pitches with that monk for this game. And I was like, but it would be this and this character. And I was given a lot of reasons not to do that. I'm like, I'm going to save them for a future game.
Okay.
So there's that monk is still going to come along, but this was definitely like, oh, I wanted to, just because I'm impatient. They're laying in wait.
Oh, what a shame! You had to play a different monk.
I know. The next monk is a lot of fun too.
Well, we'll have to be sure to chat again when that monk rolls around. Yeah. Of Asha's build, then, kind of what big abilities are you excited about that fans should either maybe they've already seen in episode 2, or they should look forward to seeing in episode 3?
Honestly, I kind of went for there's nothing really that complicated in her build. I very specifically, like, she doesn't even wear shoes. That was part of the notion of bringing her in wild and kind of being like, even the clothing, which was clearly a gift, which was not really well taken. It's a character that really isn't interested and is just doing it as a matter of formality and convenience. Even the build, I don't know if I want to say what subclass, but it's other than a weapon that I kind of homebrewed, that I don't know if it has come up yet in the game or not. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 at this point. But and again, not even a very complex one. It was, the whole notion was somebody who is very grounded. So like a level 20 monk is pretty cool, but they're cool not necessarily in a god level way, but more in a Jackie Chan, Stephen Chow way. And it's really being on a weird level, like more grounded, I feel like, than anybody else in the group on that level of like, she's the one. And there's some interesting stuff that I don't necessarily want to, it's more personality wise in that monk style, but it's it's nothing anyone from the outside would see and be like, what is that? It would just be like, oh, this is a very, very dangerous woman.
Mm.
So, and maybe a little crazy.
And
And
how,
how much kung fu stuff can a wolf do?
I mean, wolves can be pretty scary on their own. I can imagine if a wolf
Yeah.
starts coming at me with a homebrew weapon, it would be a whole different
Well,
beast.
like they can't hold one. Like there's that, and they don't really have. Like I was watching. There's a martial arts film. I'm trying to remember the name of it that has wolves in it, and it was like I watched a bunch of that, and like mostly it felt like people off screen throwing wolves at people. Like I don't know.
How different was the creation process of this character versus creating one long form?
I usually like playing long games with the notion of letting a character grow, and that was clearly not, and not necessarily with an end goal in mind, but just like whatever challenges get put forward in front of a character, having enough room in there for them to react to it, and knowing that this was gods don't change
Mm.
really. They are what they are. And I love this, the like giant archetype characters. I really love just because they are immutable. So there's not really, it's hard to change a fundamental notion of the universe. Um, but having figuring out a way to make sure that I was not necessarily always going to be on the same path and and could be swayed one way or the other was hard, but definitely yeah, there was almost a more simplistic build to it in that direction. And also, you get, you late at night, 3 a.m., you go on, you just build a level 20 character because you're like, I don't know. I want to see all the levels of this one thing. And yeah, so actually getting to play one of those really dumb ideas was great.
You've also stated in the past that you like adding elements of yourself to characters, such as the chronic pain for Ashton. Are there any like
Hmm.
pure seeds of Taliesin that viewers might be able to find in Asha?
I mean, honestly, the big one. I mean, and honestly, it's a chunk of what Caduceus was really, which was, and perhaps it was a bit of a teenage reaction to to being raised by hippies, and also being in California, knowing a lot of hippies growing up, is that soft earth mother archetype is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. Uh, but not necessarily, especially I'll say as a city boy, not my experience of nature, and has never been. And one day was an interview, and I don't want to. I say this all the time, and I shouldn't take credit for it. Stephen Fry, uh, a, a British actor you should look
Yeah.
up, was the one who said people seem to forget that it is nature in nature without human intervention. Nature in its purest form is all life on earth leaves a life of starvation and dies violently. And that is nature, is starvation and violence. And everything else is consciousness putting itself, um, uh,
In the path.
forcing compassion on the world. And that stuck with me and was one of those things I used to be a jerk about to peace, love, come to hug a tree, friends. I was a jerk about it because there's room for that. In fact, that's what we should be. We're humans. But yeah, just it's an aspect I feel like gets um, run over, and it was Caduceus was my nice way of saying it, and Hasha is my really mean way of saying it. Uh,
Just the duality.
It is all she is, and I don't know. By the time this airs, it will be said outright: is she is hunger and violence.
Hmm.
There's one of the cards in the Moonweaver in Molly and Jester's Oracle deck that is hunger and sacrifice, and it's a skeleton. It's an undead skeleton piercing a wolf with a spear, and the wolf is attacking and eating the skeleton, and it was always meant to be kind of the conversation between uh, the human intelligence and the natural world of the world is hungry and humans sacrifice because and humans take things and remove them to make new things.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's a whole I overthink these things.
That's really the big thing about playing D&D is like how in depth can you get with this entire other person.
Yeah, she was such a, and I found some other things in her later, just because. Yeah, I mean, and I will say Laura's character and Nashir's character also really threw me for a loop, and I thought I had uh I I changed my opinion on both those characters radically in the midst of the game. So that was kind of interesting.
We got the brief prologue where everyone was beings of light in Tengar, but whether as a being of light in Tengar, kind of mimicking the objects that you passed by, or a mortal arriving in Aor, you commented on the structure of the city. Asha seemed to come across as having a fascination with the shapes of things. What is it that drives them to that?
I will say that first scene and the descriptions and the shapes were invented in about 3 minutes because we didn't like that began and all of us went, okay, this is happening. Well, pick your shape. Uh, there had been a brief conversation about think about in with no real guidance about what would have been why something that was nothing would have become what it became. Like what was it about the fundamental aspect of you as a I'm God, I love it. That would have made you decide that this is who you wanted to be. The shapes were actually a grown up. My immediate thought was this would have been a thought or something that was obsessed with food. Very much, and like not even a sustenance, but like, wow, taste is interesting. What else? What does that taste like? Oh God, what does that taste like? And so that the curiosity of I want that game of like I want something new, I want something new, I want something new, and that feels like a positive aspect of nature is the constant evolution, that constant change. And so the idea of this thing that played around of like, and especially in a place where nothing was new, of like I don't even like of just that would have been a longing and a curiosity and shape was a big. I mean, shape is a big part of that, and it also explains that particular marriage between law, order, and
So,
and nature.
so you expected to sit down and like immediately start playing Asha, and Brennan launched on you that you had to imagine yourselves as shapes for a prologue.
There was like a little bit of hang on to your butts, but we were riding by the seat of our pants for that. Like we were not, other than knowing that the names were not going to be there if we ever used them,
Mm-hmm.
as an attempt to put forward that those names are gone. Uh, yeah, we really, how can you even prepare players for anything, anything like anything like that? Just art film madness.
Yeah. And once you have returned to human forms and have gotten together, and especially in the scene with the betrayers, the party immediately falls into a very relatable sibling dynamic, for better or worse. What kind of work was done to create such a natural relationship on the screen?
None.
Excellent.
Uh, 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 role playing, and not really. And I can see why Brennan was really like, please don't play a betrayer god. I mean, no matter what. And I honestly, all of us did the like, can we be a betrayer god for at least a minute? And it's just no, oh children, no. Um, but that was quickly squashed. Yeah, I had never really thought of I mean, like, I had never really given much thought of the gods as people in Exandria,
Hmm.
and of treating them more as a family. It just had, I don't know how it hadn't occurred to me that these are, they have personality, that they are like more of a Roman Grecian pantheon rather than just, I don't know. I feel like years of D&D have kind of numbed me to the notion that gods are just engines of paladin,
Yeah.
and like that there's no other. They're just a set of rules, and I've honestly always found that very boring. And this was the first time it had ever even occurred to me to like go for that DC Comics Sandman. Um, oh, this is a massive dysfunction. And then I realized also that Asha had a favorite sibling in that, and that they were a betrayer god, and that was like, oh my god, this is weird that I like am suddenly having this very intense love of one of the characters. Oh, it was very, very strange. Yeah, there was no build for that.
And then after that meeting, as you go into episode 2, the party gets split by the DM. You know, how is that sitting at the table knowing that, okay, we're here, we've got a dangerous thing to do. Oh no, why are we all going different places?
I mean, as a player, I understood the practicality of it, and I'll actually even say as a character, I understood the practicality of it. And we did do before the game a little bit of character work where we did kind of the sit down and kind of figure out how all the gods felt about each other at the table at the very least. And through it, it definitely became a thing there. The Wild Mother was a little bit full of herself and was kind of the sister that everyone's like, yeah, she's a lot. We love her, but oh,
Yeah.
you know, she's a little. I would like to speak to the manager. You know, it's everyone has their domains, and she keeps going. Well, I mean, mostly that's you in my domain, really, because nature is kind of, and like everyone's like, yeah. Like, yeah, I honestly, I wish we'd had 9 more episodes, because the one thing that did hurt watching that happen was like, this is 3 episodes, and I want to have each one of these people, including the NPCs.
Yeah.
And this is breaking my heart that we can't do that. I want enough time to really dig into every single relationship. But at least it gave us time by breaking it up that everyone can have some time with one of the other people, so you can start to develop those relationships. And it was the only way we were ever going to get that, and that was the most important part of this game.
Watching through that moment where all of the gods and the betrayer gods were conversing, there are a number of clear moments where you're not in the conversation, but it's clear you're in character, still moving and reacting as Asha to what's going around. How does staying in character in this way help you enhance your performance?
It's active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Which there's nothing worse for a D&D game than people who don't listen. It's it's going to the coffee house. I guess coffee houses don't do this anymore. I don't know, but like going to a poetry reading at a coffee house and being like, you can see the 4 people that are just waiting to go on. They're going to leave the minute they're done. Like, oh man, you're supposed to be participating, man. You be the audience that you want, and like 90% of being a player at a D&D table is being the audience for your friends, and that's more important than, at least for me, that's more important in this particular type of game, especially. And you're also not going to be as interesting. You're not going to have enough to say. You're not going to know how to relate to these people. And there is, I love physicality for characters, and being in that mind space means that you're actually sitting there forming opinions and having notions of the things you want to do with the other players, the things you want to say. And yeah, it's an active choice, because otherwise you're just looking at your character sheet waiting for you to say something pithy that doesn't relate to what's going on, especially when you're at a table of people who are really talented and it's really easy to look like an idiot. It's your greatest fear. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for noticing.
Oh, I was fascinated, especially with the animalistic head movements, that I'm sure, go into the whole wolf aspect.
Definitely, yeah. Other than a couple moments, especially with the betrayer guards, a couple moments of like, God, I fucking miss this person. This breaks my fucking heart. And like a lot like running into your favorite cousin who's now just a meth addict, and you're just like, oh fuck, man. Why I know if I let you in my house, you can steal all my shit. Oh God, fuck. And it's hateful.
To wrap this all up, Downfall has a very strange place not only is something that we the viewers are watching, but it's also something that Bell's Hells are actively watching. So
Yeah.
coming out of Downfall, how have the events of this flashback affected Ashton and his view of the gods?
Oh boy. Um, oh, boy. I will honestly say I didn't know until we actually got there. It was such an intense experience, especially for me, uh, as a player, that relating it to him, and he's been in such a, I mean, Ashton has been really trying to fix the things that keep fucking up their life,
Mm.
and trying to like actually deserve, I say deserve, no one deserves anything, that's the core of it, trying to be in a place where they know they're not going to blow everything up, because it's just there's not enough time left as a person to blow up your life three more times and get everyone to leave again. Oh boy, I don't even know how to answer that necessarily, because I'm still working it out myself, other than um it definitely both made things worse and better. It's the more you think about these people being having to answer to nobody,
Hmm.
that gets, and even now that knowing that there are people who are flawed and have love and they're people, uh, is that worse or better? Is it better that the gods are people, or is it worse?
Mm.
Uh, yeah, and the end of Downfall will definitely see some interesting moments. Don't know how else to put it other than I'm sure anybody who's gotten through two now knows Brennan has been really enjoying going. Brennan is so cruel. He's cruel. He's mean. His the world, and in a good way. Like he's very, very good at finding the specific aspects of our characters that matter to us and
Hmm.
really hurting us with that in a on a fundamental level.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like Ash is going to be shaken. It sounds like Ashton's been shaken. It sounds like you've been shaken by by
I
Downfall.
I I'm more than happy to admit I've never liked the idea of gods in a D&D setting campaign since high school, and this is the first time I'm going, oh wow, these guys are actually cool. How have I not known this over a decade? Oh no, I kind of liked them. No, shit.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to chat with Tech
Yeah.
Raptor today. We'll look forward to episode 100 of Campaign 3 coming out.
Oh boy.
Congratulations.
Ugh, it's getting weird out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have another chance to chat about all of this on the other end.
Oh, I'd love that. Excellent.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.